Mr. Spinney, how are you today?
Great.
It's great to be talking with you. It's an honor.
Well, thank you. That's very nice.
Well, I know the new documentary coming out, I Am Big Bird, and it seems like a long time coming.
Yeah, it was. It took 4.5 years of work. Once they got all this, what we agreed to do it, they approached us, my wife and I, and we had there's a lot of you've probably seen it. So there's a lot of films and videos in it that we took ourselves. We never dreamed it would be seen in the theater, but I think they sure did a great job on it.
You know, talking about people not seeing things, I got to imagine when you started, on Sesame Street, you probably didn't imagine it'd be still going on almost 50 years later.
No, couldn't have dreamed of it at all. But it would have sounded, gee, that's too long. Maybe, but it isn't. It just seems to have gone fleetingly. It didn't seem that long.
So was it just kind of another job for you? Is that how you wound up on the show?
No. This was not at all like doing our TV show, Sesame Street. It was these three guys who comprise that's the wrong word. These three guys have created Copper Pot Pictures with the idea of making documentaries. They had just finished a little film, and so they decided to do another, and somebody suggested, why don't you do one about Big Bird? And they said, that's an idea. So they called Sesame Street, and they thought they'd like that. So they called us to see if we'd like to come in and talk about it. We did, and we liked them a lot, and thought, sure, that'd be interesting to have a movie made about oneself. Kind of flattering. But so we met them and agreed it was great. But my wife, Deb, is our cinematographer, and she told them we had tons of films and videos that they could use.
Yeah, definitely a very cool documentary. And, of course, a lot of people know you as Big Bird, and also you do Oscar the Grouch. And I got to ask, is it possible for you to choose a favorite between those two characters?
Well, as far as performing, I think they're both just as much fun, even though they're very different characters. But if I had a favorite, I think I like Big Bird better because he's so sweet.
Sure, and I want to ask you your memories of working with Jim Henson, and how much input he had in these characters, and how much was actually yours, evolving over the years.
Well, it was his idea to make a large bird. He saw him as a silly, goofy bird, sort of like Mickey Mouse was spelled Goofy, and he even mentioned, well, think of Goofy when you do the character. Other than that, he did not try to guide or tell me what to do. And Oscar, he described the day he had me come down to New York so we could see us chat and see if we could come to agreement of make a show. And he took me to a restaurant called Oscar's, which was a seafood restaurant. He said, there's a very funny guy who works here. He doesn't know he's funny. He's very grouchy, but he's so grouchy, he's hilarious. So, but he wasn't working that day, so I never did meet him. And so he said, I'm going to call the character Oscar, and he's going to be a grouch. And of course, it wouldn't look like a regular human with Jim Henson's ideas. So he was an orange, muppety character with great big goggly eyes. And Oscar likes to say he's still orange if he took a bath. Why don't you say it, Oscar? Yeah, well, if I took a bath, which I will not do, I would be, you'd see I still am orange. I'd wash off all the mold and moss. Oscar, you're disgusting, Oscar. Thanks. Oh, did I say thanks? What's wrong with it?
Yeah, those two characters, of course, have become timeless over the years and, beloved by so many kids. And I got to ask you your memories of doing some of the, the Sesame Street albums. That was a big influence on me as well growing up.
Yeah, I made 46 albums with Big Bird and Oscar, and got to sing with some great people on them too. Like I sang quite a bit with Johnny Cash. As a matter of fact, I was in Australia once. I saw a record store, so we went in, and the first thing I saw was a cutout picture of Oscar and Johnny Cash, and it was It says, get the latest album from Johnny Cash and Oscar the Grouch. I said, what do you mean latest album? I never made an album with him, but I did sing with him a lot on Sesame Street. He came a number of times. So somebody recorded it right off the air and put it out as a record. I didn't have any deal with it, nor did I get any money. But Sesame Street did have something to do with it. Our show is quite big in Australia.
Yeah, and of course, being Big Bird since, the first season back in 1969, that must be pretty, physically demanding to maneuver around in that costume for so many years.
Well, yeah, it's really demanding. If I'm not near a TV camera, I don't have any view at all. We have a few feathers I can pull off. We can't take off more than two, or you'd see a big hole in the wall of his neck. And that's why I can find where a stair is or step, so I won't try not to fall down. But I've had some neat experiences falling, and one place I didn't know was they had the stairway from the temporary stage, and it turned at one little point, which is good for somebody who can't see. And I stepped off a 3-foot height, and I landed. I said, "Oh my gosh, I'm falling!" But I didn't want to fall. I don't want to put my hand out to catch me. My right hand is in the head. I didn't want to smash his head, so I kept his head up, and I landed on my knees. But I've got padding on somewhat because of the material, and I didn't get hurt. I jumped up and I said, "Boy, that first step is a doozy." And everybody laughed. They thought it was part of the show. But some of the falls weren't so good.
Well, and I got to ask you, Caroll, I know it's kind of Big Bird almost like Mickey Mouse in a way, and it's been such an iconic character and had such an impact on so many generations. Is it difficult knowing that you've had this impact on people, but you had to be, behind the mask or in the costume this whole time?
No, it hasn't bothered me at all. Now that I'm getting recognized a little bit, it's fine. But it was also, for instance, one of all the famous people I got to work with and sing with was the top of them all to me was Waylon Jennings, who was some great country singer. We lost him about 12 years ago to diabetes mostly, and he said, "Don't get me famous because you won't enjoy it." And we could see that he didn't fully enjoy his fame because, for instance, we were in a restaurant where we were enjoying some steaks, and a woman came over and said, "Can you give me your autograph, Waylon? I love you so much." And he said, "Well, do you mind if I finish the steak that's in my mouth right now?" And she said, "No, I haven't got time for that. I have to leave right now. Can you sign it, please?" I thought that was kind of rude, and after all, he was having dinner, and so afterwards he says, "See, that's what it's like when you get to be famous." So he says, "Don't envy me." But now I haven't had that kind of recognition yet, but I have been spotted in the street a few times lately, saying, "You're Caroll Spinney, aren't you?" I said, "Yes. Have a good day."
Yeah, definitely very cool that you're getting that recognition after all these years. And I got to ask also your thoughts on, the show evolving over the years. Obviously, it's been going on for decades, and I know they've revamped the street recently. And I know you have an understudy who will, maybe eventually take over for you at some point. But it seems like Big Bird and Oscar and these characters will probably go on maybe for another 50 years.
Well, I think they could. He's 42 or 43 now. So, and now he is playing Big Bird a little bit more, but he will. I still do the voice and all, just like Tom Hanks does Woody the cowboy in the Toy Story series. So Big Bird will live on, which is kind of nice to know because we lost Jim Henson in 1990, and he still goes on. As this fellow named Steve Whitmire playing him. And Deb and I happened to discover him in Atlanta working. That's where he lives. So Kermit lives, and it's nice to know that Big Bird will live too. Maybe I'll be able to watch him from a distance.
Yeah, definitely a very cool legacy to know that you've not only just in the States, but worldwide have had such a big influence on so many kids over the years.
Yes, we're seeing 147 countries right now. The numbers have been bigger, and then there's been also smaller. It costs the countries that show them have to pay some towards the expense of it, but much of it's borne by the company that I work for, which is Sesame Street.
Well, again, Caroll, I want to say I was, one of the many kids who loved you growing up and, still like Sesame Street, and I really appreciate you taking some time out with me today.
Well, thank you very, very, very much, Dustin.